meeting of the Finance Committee. It is June 11th. We have a quorum present and we are certified and compliant with open meetings laws. First up would be a public comment. Is anyone out there for that? All right, nobody coming up. We'll go into the communications then. Looks like you got one, Dave.
I'd like everybody to meet Nicole Marie Hall. She's our new Assistant Finance Director, been with us 2 days now. So doing very good, but wanted to have a name with the face when you start seeing emails, including her or possibly from her.
Got it. All right, welcome aboard. Does anyone else have any other communications to share? All right. Then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the May 28th meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Lisa. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Paul. Patrick. We're just for one more time. Just one more time. That's
Patrick,
it.
just so you know, one of my high school classmates was Paul Butler, so that's where it was coming from.
Right.
We were both band geeks, so define cool.
All right, motion and a second. Any other questions, edits on the minutes? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? Okay, Ozzy abstains. All right, first item in is a resolution to enter into an agreement with Ellers for a pro forma analysis and cost reimbursement agreement regarding Stoughton Family Dental.
We received a TIF financing request from Stoughton Family Dental. Past practice is that the council approves contracting with Ellers for the pro forma analysis. Both the resolution and the agenda were amended, including language for the cost reimbursement agreement by the city attorney. So that's the only change, and it really just adding the second paragraph. We've got it as a time-sensitive thing because just like any other TIF request, they want to start work yesterday, so we didn't want to delay it by another 2 weeks just waiting for procedures. Tim, is there anything you wanted to add to this?
I would just add that, so their plan is to expand in the adjacent area that's currently vacant. So they really are in a need to hire another doctor and some staff. So they're going to work on that and then kind of evaluate the upstairs once they get the first phase resolved. They're also looking at utilizing things like historical tax credits and other ways to try to close the gap. But this is part of the new downtown district. So this would be the second request that would be under that. What is that, TIF 10? Is it?
10, yes.
TIF 10. So we're excited that they're committed to having an office and expanding it in our downtown.
Go ahead, Lisa.
So I think I'm following, but it looks like the total cost of the project that they're hoping to complete is around $703,000, and then they're looking for the $268,250 from us. Is that?
I know the
correct?
268,250 is correct. I don't remember the total project cost. You probably found it with the documentation.
So they're planning to do the whole thing, hopefully, right? Do you
That's
know?
my understanding, yes.
Okay.
What do you mean by the whole thing?
Well, the full 700 and some thousand project. I guess what I'm wondering is if we approve, or if the council ended up approving the 268, 250, are they pretty certain the rest of the project is gonna go through, or this, I'm just curious about the rest of the, you know, like the demolition, structure, partitions, they've got, I'm seeing about 703,000, so I'm just curious if that's
Yeah, we
actually
had
gonna go through or what.
multiple meetings over the last year plus with them and their contractor. So I think they have a pretty good grasp on what the cost will be. Obviously, you know, Ellers will have to go through and do their work, and that's why we're here tonight, is so we can authorize the work and enter into the cost reimbursement. So at least from our end, we're covered for our costs of the professional services.
And then just to follow up, I assume then they'd be having to work with landmarks for the
Yeah, if they're gonna
exterior
do some
work?
exterior work, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep, they would need a certificate of appropriateness, otherwise known as a COA.
Great, thanks.
All right, anybody with any other questions on that one? I did have one, Dave, in their application that they had, when they had the partnership breakdown in there. They have both owners in there at 65%. Is there another 35% partner, or is this a math error?
I'm assuming it's a math error, but I
Got
did
it.
not ask them.
All right, just curious.
They're good with teeth, not numbers, maybe.
All right. All right, if nobody has any other questions, then I would entertain a motion to recommend to council.
I'll make a motion to recommend to council.
All right, motion by Ozzy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any other questions with this?
No, just for the benefit of Tanya, maybe we can give a little bit of background on how TIF works. I don't know if you're familiar with it at all. Oh, okay, good. So basically, you know, the debt that is going to be created by doing the project would be paid for based on the increased property taxes when the project is done. And it's not only the city's portion of the property taxes, it would be the county, the school district, Madison College as well. So it's all the taxing authorities, and they have to agree to create these TIF districts. So it's just really a tool that can be used to, you know, do projects. And this is a relatively new TIF district. There's one other project at 211 South Water Street that kind of kicked off the discussion. So it's a process just to get the district created. Once it's created, the businesses that are within the district can apply for it. They have to meet the but-for clause, which really demonstrates that but for the TIF, it wouldn't be financially feasible to do the project. So that's kind of the Reader's Digest version of it. And if you ever have any questions about any of this stuff, feel free to reach out to Dave or myself or Nicole Marie, and we'll be more than happy to walk you through this, because it can be a little bit intimidating and complicated, but we're all comfortable with it because we've been through so many lately. But even with that, we always want to do our due diligence. So if anything comes up, feel free to, you know, send us an email or give us a call or just stop into City Hall. But
All right, with a motion and a second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that to council. All right, Dave, we've delayed off on the reports from the last time, so let's go through some of them.
I don't have anything specifically to discuss. As typical, I put some comments on various things that I think you should be aware of, but I'm going to open up the floor to you folks for any questions you may have.
I didn't see anything outstanding in there other than, you know, where you put the comments in there, where I probably would have asked a question about something or other, but I'm getting used to seeing the cycles of the things coming through now, so I'm asking less and less questions with knowing what those are. So, anybody else? Anybody else has questions on
I
the
would
reports?
just add that you did send out reports to the department heads the other day, didn't you?
Correct. The ones that we sent out to department heads were for the month of May, and Nicole Marie was the one who actually generated and sent out the reports to them.
And that's something that you're going to be doing monthly, or?
Correct.
Yeah.
That way, number one, we know it's being sent out, and number two, so that the format's the same for all departments, so that if you're looking at something on the Plan Commission versus the Library Board, everything's the same, so that you're used to seeing it. All the council members will get used to seeing everything the same.
And this was also, the monthly one was also so that everyone can kind of keep like a progress report on where spending versus.
Correct.
everything
My suggestion to the department heads was to make sure to share it with their oversight committees. And then the committee members can see where things are going for it. We were trying to tweak things a little bit better to help making forecasting easier for everybody.
Mhm.
And then I would add, the other thing we've been doing, and I spent some time on this one, was to reconcile the park impact fees. So you might recall that former Director Glenn and Director Ellinger set up separate accounts for each of the parks as we collect the impact fees to make sure that those funds are being allocated to those specific parks for the amenities that we put in there. So I've gone back and worked with the planning department. They track the fees as they're collected. They put them on a spreadsheet. So I went through and verified the collections based on, the addresses, and they have maps in there too, which really helps to make sure that, 51 West, there's a check and balance in there, and then we have to take the money that we have come in, the money that is budgeted for the amenities, the invoices from the amenities, and hopefully at the end it all zeroes out. So, but we'll be doing that for all the parks going forward, and really that's kind of the first one. In the past, the money hasn't really been specifically separated like that, and we've really relied on, some assumptions that the impact fees were going to match the invoices, which would also match what we put into the CIP. And then the hope is we'll develop some sort of a policy or a procedure that will trigger when we would determine it's appropriate to order the amenities. In the past, I think the money that we get in comes in as we issue the building permits. Some developers would like to see the park equipment installed sooner or later. The difficulty is if we collect the fees in one year, then the price goes up on the equipment, and we're buying it the following year. Now we've inherently created a gap, and we're paying interest on that money too. So we're kind of trying to figure that all out right now. But I want to let you guys know that that's something that we've followed through on since the CIP process.
What's about the average delay time between collecting those funds and spending them back out on the amenities?
It typically, let's say if they're building like an apartment complex, those are the ones that you collect the most fees because there's the most units. And it typically takes a year from when, they basically put a shovel in the ground until people move in. So, depending on what time of the year they pull the permit, which is usually around this time or maybe a little sooner because they like to lease them out, and July is really the key month for them. Versus if we collect the fees, let's say in October, then we would probably go almost 2 years out then at that point, because by the time they get it built, it'll be winter, and then you might as well wait till the spring to install the equipment. So I'd somewhere between 6 months and a year and a half, I would
Okay.
say.
Well, I mean,
It's
that's
a
a fair
pretty big
estimate, yeah.
range, and some developments are more aggressive than others as far as getting the properties built out.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the next one will be Magnolia Springs, and it'll be really interesting to see how fast those lots sell there. And then Kettle Park West is another one. We're up to, I think the number was 38 permits have been pulled out there so far
Okay,
on the single-family homes, and there hasn't been any on multi-unit. So that one, you know, at one point when we were talking about the CIP, we were talking about installing playground equipment this summer, and I'm like, why? There's only going to be 38 residents out there, and the location
Right.
of the residents are like the furthest spot away from the park.
mm-hmm.
So we would just focus on the trails at least and get that part of it done.
Right,
So there's a little strategy that's going on there, and we're working obviously with Park and Rec and Public Works to work through this stuff. But if you have any suggestions, we're certainly open to them. There's really no magic wand that we wave. We kind of play it by ear.
well, I mean, if you think 6 to 18 months is a long time for construction, that doesn't seem like, that's nothing. So, Dave, do those monies then, are there short-term investment things that could maybe generate some interest income that could offset an inflationary gap in equipment
Yeah,
partially?
we've got some of that funds in a longer-term investment with WISC right now, and I'm going from memory. At year end, that fund had like $750,000 in it, so it's not chump change.
Right. So that generating what, like $2,000 or $3,000 a month in interest or something?
It's
Give
in
or
that
take.
ballpark, yeah.
Okay. All right. I mean, it's something that makes up some of that gap, inflationary gap, but, okay. All right. Any other, oh, Lisa?
I had a question about the professional services. So especially since the developer's agreement terminated, I assume then the city's responsible for all of the attorney fees related to the Brink development, even though it never happened? Or did they pay any of that on the front end?
Nope, they did not pay anything.
I'll be real interested to know what that whole, I'm gonna call it a fiasco at this point. That's overstating it, but gosh, what an unfortunate series of events. I'd be interested to know what our investment in attorney's fees ended up being for that.
That's easy to pull that data.
Yeah, well, it sounds like we're gonna get more. That's why it brought my attention when you said we're gonna probably get more invoices for April and May time, so.
And I would imagine, you know, at some point, there's going to be increment there that those are reimbursable through the TIF increment, assuming there's enough TIF to cover all the expenses. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, the TIF increment does help pay for the attorney fees and actuarial fee and accounting fees. So, yes, that's there. Whether the increment's enough to pay for it is another story. I'm going from memory to date is approximately 600,000-700,000 underwater already. So we haven't had enough development to pay for the fees so far.
Yeah, and just so you know, as long as we're talking about it, when the Brink deal fell through, the first two things we did the next day was, one, we reached out to True North Consulting, who does the soil remediation work, to have them update the costs on that and whether or not it would be advantageous for us to maybe do some of the site remediation. We haven't heard back from them yet, but we want to at least get in the queue. And then the other one was, Dave reached out to Ellers to have them update the pro forma of the district. So as we start talking to other developers, we'll at least know where we are financially and know what we need to do. We're also looking at other options on things like, can we do a TIF overlay district? Because we've already lost basically 10 years off the TIF district. So we're looking at all sorts of options like that. we're hoping we can pull that all together here sooner than later. I think the RDA meets, is it next week?
Next week, Wednesday.
Yeah, so we've moved the RDA meeting dates in between the two council dates, which I think will not only help Chris so she has a life after work, otherwise she would have had meetings Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that week.
And Thursday.
And Thursday, yeah, landmarks too. So we've moved that off of this week to give her a break, but it also puts it in between instead of having the RDA the day after the council. So I think that saves us a week when we're trying to do joint approvals. And we anticipate possibly having a joint meeting with the RDA once we get all the information together. And certainly anybody from finance is welcome to join those meetings because, you know, we want to make sure that whatever we negotiate with the next developer, we get it right.
We did get a fair amount of practice on this first round.
Too much, huh?
Anyway, but at least we, you know, we'll know where we stand if somebody approaches us for it. Ozzy?
So is Brink pulled out completely?
Yeah, there was a contingency, a benchmark that basically he had to apply for a remediation grant. Those grants are typically, if you're awarded, you have to spend the money within 2 years. And he didn't apply for the grant, was my understanding. So the RDA was like, well, he must not be planning on moving forward right away. So what's the point? So basically that terminated the agreement.
Difficult conversation was had, and
I mean, it's possible he could still come back if he
Sure.
has another plan and he can convince everybody that he's ready to go. But at this point, I think the decision is going to be to open it up to other developers. We just don't know what that looks like yet. You know, it could be multiple things. It could be another RFP or an RFQ that we would send out, so requests for proposals or quotes. It could be hire a realtor. It could be I get a list of developers and just start calling them. We've already met with two, and we're meeting a third one on, I think, Thursday. So we've had people that are actually reaching out to us because they've been following it, which is encouraging.
I've heard I'll follow up with somebody else they knew of a developer that would be really interested in the project.
Yeah, send them down.
So-
I've got a PowerPoint put together so we can go through it rather efficiently and
Sure.
explain to them where we're at and where we'd like to go. Obviously, the RDA is going to have a lot to say about that as well as the city council.
Yeah, plenty of lessons learned in it, for sure. I know it's off on a tangent, but with that one, did we have something where we retain that design? Or did we not, or
Nope.
we're not able to? No?
That's
No.
his design.
All
But
right,
I can tell you that
fair enough.
the developers I've been talking to have all, well, the first two, I don't know about the third one, but the first two I've met have had, actually, the first three I've talked to have all had conversations with Brink on and off over the past year. So
Okay.
if there's anything that can be utilized, they could certainly, you know, make that ask.
Right, because I mean, it was, you know, it was an attractive piece that it was going to put in there, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress. Any other questions on reports? That's where we were, and we led into this. All right, seeing none, then next we've got a series of resolutions that are related to ARPA funding.
As the council members know, the committee of the whole recommended these, what is it, 7 ARPA items. It's coming before finance because it affects either the '24 budget being amended or future year budgets that we're directing something to occur. So that's why you're seeing them all there. Based upon the actions taken that night, I then updated the ARPA, had an updated ARPA as of June 7th so we can see where we're at. Bottom line, we got about 70,000 in ARPA funds that have to be appropriated yet, and about 80,000 in investment earnings that could be appropriated. So for about, in round numbers, about 150,000 available, and we've got approximately 300,000 still requested that Committee of the Whole or Common Council will have to discuss.
Yeah, I think one of those, or that would be, because I think it was down to like, it was two proposals. I think it was sustainabilities and the idea groups were the two that were remaining in there. And if we probably can chip away at those within council meetings, I mean,
Right.
Committee of the Whole's essentially the same thing.
Similar to what I did with all the resolutions, Tim has asked my office to draft resolutions for each one of those. So the Sustainability Committee items, you'll see a proposed resolution for each one of those, so you don't have to vote on the entire package or try and amend it. You can just vote on one line item. I'm going to have to be really generic on the IDEA committee because
Right.
they didn't give a lot of detail.
Yep. And we'll cross those bridges as soon as we get to them in that schedule, so.
I will leave it to Lisa Reeves as the council president when she wants to add it to a
Yep.
upcoming council agenda.
Yep.
Probably hopefully on a night that's lighter, but also sooner rather than later before budget, so.
Yep.
Okay,
I think Tim and I
our
are
office
gonna
can,
chat tomorrow about some ideas, so.
our office will then start working on those resolutions so that they're available whenever we have a light agenda night.
Sounds great, thank you.
All right, so this next series of them had gone through Committee of the Whole, the committee, or that was their recommendation. We're just given the second look at that, so at least many of us on the Committee of the Whole have seen through these and talked through these, so a lot of it is for the benefit of citizen members on there. Are there things that you want to talk about with these, like how we got to, or how we got our recommendations on them, or do they seem reasonably clear?
Yeah, just so everyone remembers, the ARPA is American Rescue Plan Act money, and that was the federal money that was awarded directly to municipalities for basically pandemic. The rules kind of changed and lightened up as things got rolled out. Our share was, I want to say, $1.3-ish million, I think we started out with.
With rounding 1.4 million.
Yeah, so if you go back to that first spreadsheet, it kind of breaks down the monies that we'd already allocated and then the recommendations that we still had and the ones that are here tonight. The first one was the tree commission, and we actually had separate requests, one from the Park and Rec forester, Public Works forester, and then the other one from the sustainability. So then they got together and they both agree that the 25,000 would be something that would help us maintain our urban forests, and then anything that would be left over would be additional plantings. So that's the first one.
Yep, fantastic. So unless anybody has any questions on that, I would entertain a motion to recommend this to council.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Lisa and second by Ozzy. Any other questions on this proposal? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
And any opposed?
All right.
All right.
And then the second one was originally when we were going through our 5-year capital improvement plans, we had identified we wanted to put solar panels on as many municipal buildings as we could because the federal through the Inflation Reduction Act, has tax credits up to 30% reimbursement. Even as a tax exempt group, we can take advantage of that. We had solar companies come in and provide us some estimates of what that might look like on each of the buildings. Initially, we were going to do the Stoughton Utilities building, which is shared with the EMS and the food pantry. And after some discussion, there's conversation from Stoughton Utilities that they may decide to relocate within so many years. And we didn't know if it would be good to invest money in solar panels on that building if ultimately we wouldn't have ownership, or if for some reason it was redeveloped down there. So upon further review, we decided to shift gears and move up the fire station building, which is kind of shared with the Opera House as well. And the fire station had room and could accommodate more panels. So the request for the ARPA was to help make up the difference between the initial costs we had budgeted in our capital improvement projects for this year for the utilities building versus what the cost would be to do the fire department building. So that's what's in front of you now. And let me know if I'm missing anything, Dave.
You covered it well.
Okay. I'll let you do the hard ones.
All right, anybody have any questions on this proposal?
Is there any idea of what the payback time would be on that?
Yeah, I don't.
I thought it was something around 12 years.
Yeah,
or
what we're
something.
targeting is between 9 and 12 years on all the buildings. I want to say this one was 11 off the top of my head, but I'd have to dig deeper. Yeah, and the panels are expected to last, I don't know, I've heard anywhere from 20 to 30 years, but I'm also hearing that the technology continues to improve. So we may get more years beyond that. So there'll be what's nice about doing the panels is it's money we're borrowing. So that's our capital budget, which we do have borrowing limits, but we're not anywhere near maxing out. The cost savings is our operations budget, and our operations budget is basically capped by the state. We have spending limits, and we can only raise our property taxes from year to year based on growth. So anything we can do to ease our expenses in our operating budget is more money we can use for other things, including our staff or additional supplies that we need. So these are wins for us.
And helps fulfill the city's sustainability goals also.
Yeah, it's always nice to help participate in saving the earth.
Mm-hmm. I think the only weak link on those panels are always there's like that inverter junction where it's between the panel and back into the grid. That's, I think, always the weakest point in them. All right, any other questions on that proposal? Then I would entertain a motion to recommend to council. Motion by Greg.
Second.
Second by Patrick. Any other questions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that to council.
All right, since you're probably tired of hearing me, I'll let Jim explain the next one, and this is for the library digital services.
Yeah, thank you. So my name's Jim Ramsey. I'm the director of the Stoughton Public Library, for those of you who haven't met me. So those of you who are on the committee of the whole, you probably heard about this at the meeting last week, but what we're asking for is $25,000 for a digital service called Hoopla. It allows library users to download audiobooks and ebooks, so either books that they listen to or books that they read on an e-reader, through this service. And anyone who's a Stoughton Public Library card holder can access this service. The service is, I don't know how much you want me to get into it, but there are two services that we offer downloadable content to our library users through. One is called Overdrive, or the app that people use is called Libby. So, under that model, we purchase materials, copies of these digital items statewide through the Wisconsin Public Library Consortium, and everybody in the state has access to this collection. This is separate from the Hoopla collection that I'm going to talk about in just a second. And so we purchase a certain number of copies of these items, and people have to get on waiting lists, especially for items that are more popular. So what Hoopla allows us to do is offer these high demand, in a lot of cases bestseller items directly to our patrons with no waiting. And the reason they're able to do that is because Hoopla is a pay-per-use model of service. So the library, we pay for every download that the patrons make, or every download that they initiate for an ebook or an audiobook. So it is a little bit more expensive, but it really, really provides a much-needed service for our patrons. The thing about audiobooks, of course, is they open up a whole world of reading to people with limited vision and people who can't read off of page. Ebooks also are able to be on an ebook. I don't know how many of you read ebooks on your Kindle or tablet or whatever, but you can increase the font size of an ebook very easily to make essentially any ebook a large print book for those with low vision issues, or vision issues. The other nice thing about these services is this provides library services to people who, for whatever reason, can't visit our physical building. And so, yeah, it's a very worthwhile service. We've been offering it for about a year. The use has gone up steadily as we've been offering it. And so in order to sustain it, we've been using various kind of pots of money that we've had, some gift funds here and there. We've applied for some other types of grants to fund this. Right now, we don't have it funded in our operational budget, but we are working on that. My goal in the coming years is to work this service sort of into the operating budget, or at least part of it into the operating budget to make it more sustainable. But this $25,000 would fund the service for about a year and a half. And like I said, we have some other funding sources so we can keep it going for much longer than that. But yeah.
The one thing I think I missed during the committee of the whole meeting was, so this is not a subscription where you pay a flat fee, you pay for each download. So then I think you said that the $25,000 based on past use, it covers you for about a year and a half?
About a year and a half, yeah. And that's based on past use. We're not likely to see use explode exponentially because you have to be a Stoughton Public Library card holder to use the service. So past use is a pretty good indicator of future use, with a couple caveats there. As more and more people are aware of the service and, more and more people get library cards, more and more people will be using the service. But it's not, we're not seeing out of control runaway costs or anything associated with this. We have other ways, again, I don't want to get too into the weeds, but we have other ways of sort of keeping costs down by the number of items and the type and cost of items that we make available to our patrons. We can kind of adjust that on the back end. So there are some items that are more expensive than others with that per download cost, and we can adjust that on the back end and kind of make it so some of those more expensive items are not visible if we're trying to control costs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jim, is that one, do the library users then, they don't have to set up like a different subscription or a different log-on or anything like that?
They have to create an account one time. The first time they use it, they have to create an account, and then it lives in an app. And then they just use the Hoopla app on their phone or their tablet. And it works really well. It's pretty seamless.
Okay.
And like I said, the other way that we offer downloadable ebooks and audiobooks, Libby, through a service called Overdrive is also extremely popular. But the downside there is we have to pay, or we meaning the Public Library Consortium as a whole in the state of Wisconsin, we have to pay for each individual item that we make available through that service. With Hoopla, it's simultaneous use. So multiple people can check out a popular title at any one time. The flip side of that is that, we pay per use.
Do either one of those entities, they're not data gathering or anything like that? using
No,
data
no,
gathering?
they're pretty good as far as that goes. They work with libraries, so they know what our standards and expectations are in terms of privacy and data
Alright.
gathering.
That's good, because that's always at least library use and what you're reading are good
Yeah.
ways to track who and what you like.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, any other questions for Jim on this? All right, thanks, Jim.
No,
And I
thank
would
you.
entertain a motion to recommend to council.
Make a motion to recommend to council?
All right, motion by Ozzy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Greg. Any last questions on this one? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that one to council.
All right, and the next one is $90,000 toward future ambulance purchase. And you might recall that over 2.5 years ago, we started having conversations about replacing their fleet. Ambulances are both past their expected life. The first one we ordered, and last I heard, it's been pushed back to December now, so that might go into next year. So the idea here is to get the next one in the queue because the supply chain issues, we have no idea when this thing will ultimately be delivered, but we want to get in the queue right now. So when production starts getting caught up, we'll be in a position to have both of our ambulances in fine shape. The difference will be through a CIP request in the future. And if there's any additional state grants out there, like there was for the first ambulance, we would certainly try to take advantage of that as well.
All right, any initial questions on this proposal?
Move to recommend to council.
All right, motion by Greg,
Second.
second by Patrick. Last chance on questions for this one. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Are any opposed? All right, I recommend that to council.
All right, and the next one, originally we had $100,000
May I
in there
interrupt for a
for,
minute? I missed who made the motion
Oh.
on that one.
Greg did.
Yeah,
Okay, and who was second?
Patrick.
Thank you.
All right. So the next one, we had an additional $100,000 request in for the revolving loan fund. And after talking to folks of our economic development team, we decided it might be more advantageous to earmark money for future sprinkler systems so we can get that work done before 2026, because sometime between 2027 and 2029, they're going to be replacing Main Street. So the idea here is to give those businesses on Main Street the opportunity to upgrade those water lines before the road gets constructed, instead of potentially doing it afterward, because we know that once you start opening up a road that's been replaced, that moisture gets in there and the roads deteriorate faster. We've identified up to 4 businesses that would take advantage of this. I'm working with Katrina Becker, our consultant from Becker Professional Services, to reach out to those 4 and get a commitment from them to at least initially get a quotation to show that they're committed to doing the work. And if we're going to set a deadline, if they can't get a quote, and if the quotes come in higher or lower, we'll adjust it too. But if we only, let's say, have 2 commitments out of the 4, then we would have time to bring back the remaining balance and reallocate that for something else. So as of right now, we're asking for up $100,000.
Mayor, was this one, with the water main one, was this one that Stoughton Dental was potentially considering?
Yeah, Stoughton Dental is one, the Course House is another one. I think the Green Pottery was a third one, and I'm sorry, I don't remember who the fourth one was. And, you know, I just, this helps close a gap,
Yeah.
whereas the revolving loan fund saves them a little bit of interest, but it really doesn't close the financial gap. So this is another tool as well that they could take advantage of, you know, along with the TIF and with historical tax credits and anything else that we're able to secure for them. We also work with Stoughton Utilities. They provided us maps to identify where the water mains were, so we could at least review and agree on which locations potentially we'd want to do. Some of them it wouldn't be worth doing because they'll never need a sprinkler system. But in the older buildings, most of them are grandfathered in, but if they change the use or they get above a certain amount of occupancy, then I think it kicks off higher standards. Is that accurate, Chris?
Yeah, so some of them have come to us with just like, oh, I want to utilize the second floor. And when you start doing a certain amount of stuff to a building, you have to bring it up to code. I think some of the buildings downtown are not even handling, without their sprinkler systems, or are having issues with handling water load. And I'm not talking like they're not a high use water load at these areas, is from my understanding. So, you know, we talk about sustainability, using what we currently have, and I think this will really help offset some of those costs with some of those buildings, give them better use long term, you know. So, does that help?
Are these then, when Main Street is constructed, are they going to upgrade some of the water lines in them to,
Yep.
if this other capacity comes, or the other buildings come online needing capacity, that we're ready for them?
Yeah, the Stoughton Utilities will be doing upgrades on the assets that they own. These particular water lines basically go from the curb to the building, so it'll be the building owner's responsibility. But part of the budget for the CIP for utilities was to replace some infrastructure up and down Main Street as we do this project between 2025 and 2029 in different phases.
Some of them would go from like 6-inch inlet line to an 8-inch inlet line or something
Yeah,
like that.
I'll let them determine that.
Right.
That's above my
Right.
pay grade.
All right.
I think some of them were like 2-inch water lines. I mean, they were.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was that. It's that bad.
Huh,
So
okay,
yeah, so just even sustaining what's in the building currently.
got it.
So.
All right. Any other questions on this proposal? Recommend a motion to,
I'll make the motion to recommend approval to council.
all my words jumbled up there. Motion by Lisa, second by Ozzy. Any further questions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed?
All right, next one is the GIS, and this is coming from Planning Director Muntz Pritchard.
Yeah, so I don't know how many people have been onto our GIS interactive map for zoning, but there are giant gaps in it currently. We essentially, when I got here, it looks like there's essentially 3 different companies that have done our mapping in some capacity. We have MSA, Vanderwall, and Veerbecker, depending on if it's current, future, all of those. Really what I'm looking for is a GIS intern to start getting those inputted and start getting them up and online and working. From there, we have several other projects we can have them working on. Previous job with Whitewater, we attached a lot of the information, meeting minutes, so that they could, if you own that property, you could toggle to the area. We really want to get some of the stuff up online and moving so that people have access to the information for their own properties. I have examples if you need me to show you, but like I know that we only have essentially 8 minutes left, and so if you want me to dive into it, I can, but I also don't want to take up too much of your time too, so.
Up to the committee members if they want more information. Nobody's jumping at it. Lisa?
I don't need any more information.
Get your mic on.
Sorry. I just was gonna ask, and I missed this in the last meeting, but I wonder, under the whereas, the GIS intern position should remain below 1,200 calendar hours. Should that be changed to will remain below? Or just?
It has to remain below, so.
So we could change that? You'd be
Yes.
okay with that?
I'd be
Okay.
fine with that, yes.
So I would make the motion to recommend approval to council, but just change it to whereas the GIS intern position will remain below the 1,200 calendar hours each year.
That's fair. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ozzy. All right, any other questions on that? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're almost there.
Okay, and the next one is the Opera House. The Opera House is looking to contract with somebody that does economic development, especially in the area of marketing venues. And the Friends of the Opera House have committed to $30,000 toward the work that would be done. And specifically, the work would include things like corporate sponsors for shows, to try to help minimize the funding gaps that we have in the operations of the Opera House. What they're asking for is an additional $10,000 out of the ARPA funds, just really to extend the length of that person's ability to work on the project. And the person that we're looking at is familiar with our operations. She used to work there. So we really believe that between her experience here and her regular position, that she'll be able to hit the ground running.
And this one was, did that person, were they started already, and then we would just be adding the funds to get it through to October, is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Was-
All right.
Was there, I'm trying to remember the conversation from Committee of the Whole, but was there a matching on this one?
Yeah, the $30,000 from the Friends of the Stoughton Opera House. So they raise money in the past. They've done things like the seat cushions, which were long overdue. They put a railing up. They have a ramp for getting stuff on stage. The sound system, the speakers, the lighting. So over the years, they've raised a lot of money, and this year they decided with the funds that they raised, it would be a good investment to try to do some things to, help, get more corporate sponsorships. We have outstanding support from our members, and we'd like to have more corporate members.
All right, any further questions on the proposal? Entertain a motion. Greg? Is there a second?
Or recommend? I'll second.
Second by Patrick. Last chance for questions on it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend those up to council. Looks like we've got to kick the can down the road again for the affordable housing thoughts.
This one, it's not time sensitive, is it, Dave? So we can bring it back.
Perfect. Yep. Yep.
Is that going anywhere?
No.
Okay.
2019, not 19 something, 1990.
Good point.
All right, yeah, we've got that for future agenda items, and, we're still chipping away at the list that we have, so unless anybody wants to add anything more. Please don't for now. Move to adjourn by Greg.
Second.
Second by Lisa. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? Okay, thanks, everybody.